There we go. Well, hello, everybody, and good morning. My name is Dina. I am the founder of Pain to Possibilities and the Change Pain Academy, and I'm your host for the Willow Tree Summit, Chronic Pain and Trauma. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to our esteemed guest, Shabnam Rakhiba. Hello, hello, hello. Courageous and compassionate, that's how Shabnam is usually described by those she works with. Shabnam has spent more than a decade battling chronic pain due to fibromyalgia and endometriosis. She now uses her lived experience to support women living with chronic health issues. She empowers them in cultivating the confidence, flexibility, and resilience they need to flourish using techniques incorporating mindfulness, acceptance, and values-based living. Shabnam has worked with people with varied health conditions, including cancer, autoimmune disorders, reproductive health conditions, and physical impairments. Shabnam firmly believes that one can have a meaningful life filled with fulfilling relationships and success, despite chronic illness. Shabnam has a master's in psychology, is a qualified life coach, and a practitioner of ACT, which is the acceptance and commitment therapy, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. She's an author of the upcoming book, Healing Chronic Pain, an anthology bringing together 25 brilliant practitioners supporting individuals living with chronic pain. Shabnam has been featured on the radio, in the Medium, and multiple podcasts, sharing her experience of living with chronic pain and strategies to live a purposeful and joyful life. She provides daily and free advice and support through her Facebook group, which I'm a part of, Unapologetic Women Collective Chronic Illness Support. And Shabnam lives in Southwest London with her super supportive husband and 3 children. And that is why you're here, because you have so much to offer. So Shabnam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Dina. That was a very long welcome.
I know, that's okay.
You're a little bit short, I think.
No, that's sort of the par for the course. We have lots of people who have lots to offer. And when you have lots to offer, your bio gets a little longer, right? So yes. I'm excited to have you here for sure.
Thank you so much. It's great being here with you, Dina.
Absolutely great. Oh, well, I know we've done this before. So, I love our conversations, and I can't wait for us to dive in and for our listeners to gain a whole lot from this conversation. So today we are talking about living meaningfully despite chronic pain, psychological flexibility to the rescue. Now, I think this is really important, and that's why we're going to spend a little bit of time today. So everyone get comfortable, myself included. All right. So Shabnam, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory and how it brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Because my backstory is very important to the work that I'm doing today. Mm-hmm. It actually drives everything with regards to my work. So when I was in my early 20s, after I had my second child, my son, so I started experiencing some back pain. Mm-hmm. And you know how it is, childbirth, back pain, and we think, okay, just something temporary. Right. It's acute, it will go away. Mm-hmm. So I started all the physical therapy and so on. Mm-hmm. A long story cut short, I did a lot of things trying to get rid of the pain, but it only spread. So it actually took me 10 years, and I'm not joking, 10 years, more than 10 years to understand what's going on in my body. Yeah. During these 10 years, I had a lot of different diagnoses, all kinds of diagnoses, really. And finally, in the past few years, we've settled on fibromyalgia and endometriosis, which has been diagnosed through surgery. Right. As for the fibromyalgia, I'm a bit unsure about it, but what I know right now in my life, I have chronic pain, right, which is constant, relentless. I understand what it means to live with chronic pain day and night, year after year, and every week, every day, every minute, and how difficult it is on your future, on your career, your relationship, and everything. And this is what drives my work. Right. Understanding of how difficult chronic pain is, and I can emphasize with people, I can understand them. And I thought it was a good marriage of my background in psychology, my life coaching and everything, and bringing my lived experience to it and bring it all together in my work of supporting women living with chronic health conditions in their well-being and confidence and so on.
Oh, beautiful. And you're right. I think that's an important thing to hold our hat on is sometimes these life experiences can really bring you to a place, right, when you are living your purpose. Not to say that pain is your purpose, but you are pulling it together. You're using it for good. So we are today talking about this amazing framework called ACT. So what is ACT and what is its relevance to managing chronic pain?
So like you mentioned, Dina, ACT basically stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. Mm-hmm. And we commonly just call it ACT. Right. And it focuses on enhancing psychological flexibility. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be using fancy words, jargon, and so on. It's just off-putting, really. So I'm going to avoid using those fancy words too much.
Sounds good.
And, so, this talk we're having today, it's easy to remember for everybody. Mm-hmm. So what do I mean by psychological flexibility? It means helping us stay in the here and the now, the present moment, right, and to engage in behaviors that help us create meaningful life based on our core values. So this is what it means. Behaviors, core values, the present moment.
Amazing. And I think that's really what's missing from the messaging to our chronic pain community is how important it is to live our core values. And, unfortunately, how much of that is sapped with chronic pain. So what is it about staying in the present and why is that important?
Okay, staying in the present. Mm-hmm. Okay, when we stay rooted in the present, okay, not being influenced by what's happened in the past. Mm-hmm. So this enables us to take a broad view of the situation we are in and really to follow up on those behaviors that can enable us to live more balanced and meaningful lives. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to give you an example here of a current summit that we are doing, okay? Dina, here you have brought live is, I think, 18 different people together, 18 different experts together, mm-hmm, each with a piece of their wisdom for this summit, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this summit right here is a great example of how psychologically flexible we are in our mindset. All right, let me explain. Okay. If someone is rigid in their thinking, they're going to approach this summit thinking, okay, it's not going to help me in any way. It's useless. It's nonsense. Mm-hmm. Nothing has happened in the past. Why would this help me, right? But if someone has this psychologically flexible mindset, they'll be open and willing to listen and act on the wisdom being offered here. So choose our responses and behaviors that align with our values and our vision in life. What I mean by this is this. We all have certain things that we want from life, right? Mm-hmm. Love, joy, connection with our kids, partners, mm-hmm, right? And being psychologically flexible means that we listen to whatever is going to be offered throughout the summit, mm-hmm, and really reflect on what is it that we can take away from all this wisdom that's being offered that can move me towards the life that I want. Mm-hmm. So basically just psychological flexibility means stay open, stay willing to learn. So I think basically speaking, this in itself explain what being psychologically flexible is.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, it does. And I think, and I'm just going to keep tying this back in, but it's really important because often our community just hears the words, well, just change your mindset. People don't know what to say beyond that, right? And that gives them nothing, no framework whatsoever, right? So in saying flexibility, psychological flexibility, that just offers a little more neutrality. It's not change your mindset. It's not just think happy thoughts. It's just a bit of space, right? To say we're gonna work on the flexibility piece. So how can ACT help us mitigate chronic pain?
Okay. How can it help us get rid of pain? That's what you're asking.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we need to clarify the foundation of our talk today, okay? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about ACT here, we are not looking at curing or eliminating pain. Right. Like I just mentioned, I live with chronic pain, mm-hmm, and I work with ACT. If ACT could have helped me eliminate the pain, I wouldn't still be in pain. You see what I mean here?
Right. Yeah.
So, curing the pain really is not our primary aim.
Right.
Okay. So our main purpose really is to clarify how we can have a life worth living despite the pain.
Right.
Now, oftentimes what I've seen, and from my own lived experience again, a secondary gain of ACT, of increasing our psychological flexibility, is that there's a decrease in the frequency, duration of pain flares, and so on. Really, it's not our main focus, trying to eliminate the pain. We're not really looking at reducing chronic pain per se.
Right.
But rather reducing the impact of pain on our life. That's what we're looking at, really.
Beautiful. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because again, I always have to have my input, don't I, on this summit. But yeah, it is an important message, because everyone's pain story is different. Everyone's recovery is different. And when there's that perpetual need to rid yourself of the pain, that becomes part of the problem too. So I love your approach, and I love the ACT principle as well. So would you say, isn't it counterintuitive to ask someone living with chronic pain to learn to live with it rather than try to eliminate it?
Okay, yeah. I guess it absolutely is. Yes, I know what I'm saying is counterintuitive. Because really, we human beings, we are wired to avoid that which tries to hurt us. It's normal, it's hardwired, We want to eliminate, we want to get rid of a pain. Given how relentless and exhausting pain is, that's a completely common, understandable, and valid desire, right? I've been through it, I understand. However, I guess, when we have such wishes and needs, wishes and desires that do not materialize, especially with regards to trying to get rid of pain, it does lead to a lot of heartbreak, disappointment, anger. I've been through a lot of treatments in my life where my whole focus wasn't trying to cure the pain. I just need to get rid of this pain,
Yes.
And when that didn't happen, it led to a lot of emotional suffering for me. I've been through real serious depressive episodes. So in ACT, what we are trying to do is to reduce the emotional suffering that comes with chronic pain.
Right.
And we do this by willingly acknowledging the hardships and challenges that comes with living with chronic pain, and still, in spite of all these challenges, committing to a purposeful life. Right. And I know how this sounds. It's not easy. I've done it. I know what I'm saying right now. It might make some people upset.
Right.
It does tend to lead to certain upset reactions sometimes. It is quite a difficult thing to do, but it's not an impossible thing. In ACT, we learn to focus on the things that we can do, right, rather than the things that we cannot do. So we learn to pace ourselves, we prioritize, we delegate, we engage in self-care, and we persist and persevere, all with the aim to create the life that we want, right?
Right. So well said, Shabnam. I think there's a lot of tie-in too between, I'll give an example. So all of my children have anxiety, as I know a lot of kids these days do, pardon me. And it's the same thing, trying to understand that it serves its purpose. It is there for a reason. It's there to be protective. And so we're not trying to rid ourselves of that. It's the same with pain. It does serve its purpose. We're not trying to rid ourselves of it, and we can live with it. And the best messaging I'm hearing so far from you is just that power of using that flexibility to be able to find a way to live well, right, despite the pain. All right. So yeah, I'm getting back to the acceptance piece, because I think this is a really important part. And I know that word can be a little supercharged, but let's break it down. So you're speaking about the concept of acceptance, and so acceptance of chronic pain. What does that look like? How does it work?
Okay, like I just said, it's a difficult concept in itself. And I think, due to my own opinion, is that oftentimes there are medical professionals who, when you go to them with, you're suffering from such and such and chronic pain, you go to them and basically what they be telling you is to just, live with the pain. There's nothing you can do. That's that's the kind of message that people get when it comes to acceptance. It kind of means giving up, submitting pain, like perpetual pain, like an eternal hell. Basically a resigned attitude, right? I'm sure you have you can relate to what I'm saying right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Acceptance, really, though, it's not giving up. Okay. It's not a passive stance that we take in life. It's something active that we have to choose for the day. As in every day, like myself, every day I tell myself, okay, there are some days that are better, some days are worse. And I will tell myself, okay, today I'm in pain. But today I will still choose to continue to create joy and meaning and purpose in my life despite the pain.
Right.
So really it's about not waiting for the pain to disappear to create the life that we want. Right. So we move from thinking, I have chronic pain, I can't do anything, I'm never going to be happy. We move from this to, I have chronic pain, but I can still create this joy and meaning in my life and have things in my life that matter to me that are worth living for.
Right. Oh, so well said. And I think what's really important too, before I get on to our next question for you, is like you mentioned and you touched on, there's a lot of people who hear this message who are really stuck in the muck, where you probably felt yourself some time ago, feeling like, it really does bring about those deep emotions, hearing someone say, these words. You were giving some great context to these words, which is really important. But it's important to understand that most of our presenters here in the summit have been where you have been. And you are giving such a great sense of hope that, it is work. And there are processes you can do to get you to the other side of the bridge, right? And you're a really great example of that. So, okay, let's go back to the concept of psychological flexibility, which you mentioned is the focus of ACT. How does one develop psychological flexibility?
Okay, that's a good question. All right. So we look at psychological flexibility in terms of 6 core processes, okay? Like 6 psychological skills or mental skills. Let's call them mental skills, okay? And a bit of a jargon here. So there are 6 core processes: acceptance, living in the present moment, values, committed action, cognitive diffusion, and the observing self. Now, we've already touched upon acceptance. We've touched on living in the present. So let's look at values and committed actions, I guess.
Let's do that. Sounds good. Tell me a little bit more, because I love this part of it, about values. What exactly do you mean by values?
Okay, so in ACT, we are encouraged to explore our personal values. Okay, so what happens really, everybody experiences this, not only people with chronic pain. This applies to all of us. We get so busy and life becomes so hectic, right? That we kind of lose touch with our core values.
Right.
Okay, so in ACT, we are encouraged to explore our personal values and set goals and choose behaviors that are consistent with our personal values.
Right.
Maybe it would be easier to understand if I were to use a metaphor here, okay?
Yes.
All right, let me ask you this then.
Okay.
So you're walking in the woods, all right, and you're walking and you are lost. You're confused. You don't know what to do. So what do you do?
Right. Oh, good question. Well, try not to panic.
Most important, yes.
But I might be tempted to panic. That's a good question. What would I do? I would, I think I would probably get flustered and say, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. I should have brought my phone with me. I didn't bring it. All these feelings of fear and how do I get out of this?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's go back to the metaphor.
Okay.
You know, you're in the woods, you're confused. So now, look, after all the panic and everything, and you've settled down, it's smart you whip out your compass.
Oh,
You find the right direction, right? Okay. So it's like we are all on this journey of life, right? And we can use our values to guide us, to tell us which direction we should be taking to reach our destination. So it's just like, when we're walking in the woods and we get lost, we're confused, we don't know what to do, and we use the compass to direct us again. It's the same concept. With our values, it helps to guide us in life,
right.
help us make the right decisions and choose. It's all about choosing the right actions.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a great example, actually. And I'm sorry I stumbled on that one, but it really brought home the point of, wow, how much clarity I didn't have in that moment, And that's often the experience up front when we're flustered or acting out of fear. Okay. So clarifying our values is an essential part of ACT. How specifically does ACT go about clarifying someone's values?
Okay, so in ACT, we usually do it through, it really depends really on individual preferences.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do it through questionnaires, sometimes through values cards,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
sometimes through just discussions, really.
Right.
But the point is that values work is integral to ACT.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the work that we do in ACT. And I think for myself, as a person who's lived with chronic pain, it's been essential to me. It's
Mm-hmm.
been important to me understanding my values because
Right.
with chronic pain, there is often the feeling that life has become a bit meaningless because we can't really engage in all the things that we used to prior to the pain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So chronic pain does create barriers, obstacles in life,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and clarifying these values really has personally helped me. It
Mhm.
has helped me prioritize and really, really understand
Mhm.
where I should be focusing my energy and my effort. It's
Right.
like, I've learned to use my mind and body
Right.
wisely and smartly
Mhm.
in pursuits of all the things that truly matter to me.
Right. Oh, so well said. And I think there's an important point to pull out of that one is that, we're really groomed in our medical model to believe that it's the things, it's just sort of biological fixes or approaches to treatment. And we are so much more than that. I think it also was really important to understand is that it is more than just the biological in the sense that when we apply the psychological piece to it, there's a lot of really cool growth that happens from a result of this. The work that is being done through ACT, through a lot of these other modalities, is something any human could work with, right? When we're kids, we're not really taught about our values and how important they are, but they are such an integral part of who we are and the life that we lead. And so a lot of these skills, I think anyone can grow from, definitely from chronic pain. And the reason why I state this, and trauma too, is that that's where a coach comes in, someone like yourself, right? Or someone like myself, because a lot of times people say, what does a coach do? We really are the ones who are helping with those sort of, I hate to say the word lifestyle, but growth factors, right? Beyond just fixing tissues. And I think that's an important distinction to make. So you have very eloquently drawn up a very clear picture of what sort of the ACT is about psychological flexibility and the 6 core processes. And I wrote them down. There's the acceptance, the present moment,
Yes.
cognitive diffusion,
Mm-hmm.
observing self,
Yes.
values, and committed action. Okay. So we've addressed living in the present, acceptance, values, and committed actions already. Can you briefly share what it meant by cognitive diffusion and self as context and their relevance to chronic pain?
Yes. I feel that this is where ACT significantly differs from other frameworks.
Okay.
When living with chronic pain, I've noticed that people tend to have a recurrence in certain patterns of thinking. Okay. For instance, Dina, since you're yourself involved in the chronic pain community, you would know oftentimes people will think, my life is over, it won't get better,
Yes.
things will never improve. There's this sense of hopelessness, right? Now, in certain frameworks, there is an emphasis on trying to change the thoughts, trying to change the thinking, eliminating the thinking. So this is where we have practices like challenging the thoughts, positive thinking, think positive,
Right.
everything will get better, or repeating positive affirmation. So really the whole focus in some framework is on trying to get rid of the thoughts. Have you found that?
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The main difference between these other frameworks and ACT is here we tend to view these thoughts as simply mind chatter. Or I personally like to call them mind monkeys or mind monsters.
Yes.
And the mind chatter, it has a protective function. Okay, it's here to really protect us from disappointment. But if you think about it, it is much less painful to view things in a negative light than to view things positively and then be disappointed afterwards.
Right.
Right. In ACT, we learn to stop fearing our thoughts. We learn to stop fighting them. And we learn to simply view them as words in our head that just tend to show up. There's no need to fear them. There's no need to challenge them or waste our energy on them. So instead of trying to get rid of the thoughts, changing them, we just focus on how we relate to those thoughts.
Some of, the overlap in our summit as well is it's almost sitting beside those emotions or allowing that space to sort of explore, as opposed to change, sitting with them and really trying to understand them, where they're coming from, so that you can work with them, right? And I think that's an important distinction with ACT, it seems like. So let's elaborate a little bit more here. You mentioned changing how we relate to thoughts.
Yes, okay. One thing that we need to understand with ACT, which is again different from other frameworks, is that in ACT we don't view thoughts as positive thinking or negative thinking. Okay, there's no such, we make no such difference. So we look at them simply as difficult thoughts that they show up simply because of a situation we are in. So these thoughts are really valid and natural responses to tough situation.
Okay.
So instead of looking at thoughts as positive or negative, we simply look at them as helpful or unhelpful in helping us move towards the life we want. We absolutely do not subscribe to the belief that we are our thoughts. Here, it's completely the opposite. We learn to hold our thoughts lightly and understand that we are not our thoughts. What we think, what comes to our mind, do not define us. And our thinking does not need to dictate our behaviors and actions.
Okay. So let's dive into this one just a little more. That's a really good point. Okay. Can you give our listeners a bit more of a concrete example?
Okay. Yes, I know it's a very different way of thinking, of looking at thoughts from what is usually out there. So let me give a concrete example, like you said, to make it easier. Let's say I want to go out and meet up with some friends, all right? But I'm worried about having a pain flare, which I know is something that is extremely common in the chronic illness community, chronic pain community.
Yes.
Now, when I'm trying to leave a house, I keep hearing this mind chatter here with regards to how if I have a sudden pain flare, no one will understand and everybody will just think I'm a drama queen and I'm just oversensitive, right?
Yes.
But here, I have a choice. I can either allow the unhelpful thoughts to dictate my behavior, and so I decide to stay home and not go out. Or I can choose to act upon my core value, which for me, one of my core values is being courageous. So I can choose to act on my core value and still leave the house and meet up with my friends.
Yeah.
One simple way that I myself use in such situations to handle unhelpful thoughts is, instead of fighting the mind chatter and wasting my energy on the unhelpful thinking, I just say to myself, or rather, I say to my mind, thank you, mind monkeys. I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
I know why you're here for. I know you're trying to protect me. But right now, I'm going to choose courage. Right now, I'm going to choose connection with my friends. And I am choosing to leave the house.
Nice.
For me, this approach is filled with self-compassion.
Yes.
Because it's validating our thoughts and feelings.
Yes.
It's filled with gentleness. It's filled with some humor with a mind monkeys. And truly, it is really empowering.
Yeah. Oh, so that's a great example. Thank you, because I think it's really important for people to be able to understand how to apply this. I mean, and I honestly believe that when it comes to trauma as well, because, you know, we are addressing both, a lot of these principles will apply. And I think it's important when you are dealing with unresolved trauma to speak to, obviously, a trauma-informed therapist to really work with you closely on a lot of this framework in general, because I think it's a very effective framework. Because just to sort of summarize all that we've talked about today, you know, the 6 components of ACT really are much of the things that we do when it comes to working through chronic pain, working through trauma. And those are things like, you know, living in the present moment, being aware of sort of perhaps what your mind is trying to tell you or the words that you're hearing, working through cognitive diffusion. So we know we have that negative bias in our brain. It's just the way it is. It's also very protective. And so there, you know, the ACT model allows us to work through the cognitive diffusion to break down that negative bias and perhaps put reframe it, just like you gave in that example a moment ago. The importance of values, living our true values is an important part of recovery, and observing self. So what I love about observing self here is that the awareness piece, where you are sort of looking at things from a bird's eye view and then being curious from that perspective. And I think that's a really important factor. And then the committed action. I mean, I think that's sort of last on the list, probably because once you've worked through all the other factors, then that seems to be the final bow on the work that you're doing with the framework, which is amazing. So Shabnam, before I let you go, what is it that you enjoy most about using ACT to work with either chronic pain or trauma?
Okay, so ACT is very experiential. So we use visualizations, we use all our senses to understand difficult concepts and apply them to life. We also use a lot of metaphors in ACT, like we were saying earlier, trying to understand values with a metaphor of a compass and being lost in the woods.
Right.
So ACT really can be really light. It's quite full of humor and fun in some ways. For instance, working with a mind monkeys can be really hilarious sometimes.
Right.
So it's quite diverse, I would say, the work. One week we might be doing questionnaires, one week values card. We are moving our body to understand concepts. So I have a nice story here. During my training, when I was training for ACT, my the trainer, he actually stood on his chair to help us understand the concept of acceptance. So what he was trying to do, he was trying to jump from the chair.
Okay.
And he was making the move to jump, but he didn't jump. And then he asked us the question, did I jump? And we said, no. So he kept trying. And he finally explained to us that it's just like acceptance. Acceptance is either a yes or a no. You cannot have a midway with acceptance. It's like jumping from the chair. You either jump or you don't jump. There's no half jump here. You see? So ACT is very different from talk therapy in this way. You
Right.
never really get bored doing ACT. It's
Yeah.
quite, for me personally, I found it fascinating and very insightful.
Yeah. And helpful, obviously.
Helpful, definitely. I think in terms of the fact that it's quite solution oriented.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a very practical approach to this whole thing of chronic pain. So you always come out with new skills, new, knowledge and really realistic, achievable ways to create the life you want despite the chronic pain. So in this way, ACT is it's fun, it's light, it's practical, and it's very empowering, really.
I'm in such deep thought while we're talking of just about how all of this framework, how it impacts the brain. And, I'm not going to get too nerdy here, but it excites me because, all of this reframing, the negotiations having with the brain, that just puts us in the driver's seat a little bit more, right? Where you are the one taking back a little bit of the control, right? Again, you're not getting rid of it. You're just working with it, working through the emotions, talking to that monkey brain, observing that monkey brain. These are all things, and there's no side effects. That's the beautiful part, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't really explain how much I love ACT.
Mm.
It's because it's not just something that I work with, I apply in my work, but it's something that I live
Yes. Yeah.
every day because I live with chronic pain and I use all of these
Yeah.
in my daily life and I know it works.
Right. Right. Because it's so much more than just a framework. Like it is, these are life skills. And I think that's an important distinction to make. A lot of these things that our amazing presenters have talked about are life skills. And we're not often taught those up front because there are so many things to teach. So this is why it's a lifelong learning, right? When it comes to especially values. I mean, values in itself, we're not taught enough about that. So Shabnam, thank you so much for your insight today. I love these conversations. How can people reach out to you or connect with you if they wish to do so?
The best way is through my group, which is the Facebook group you're part of, Dina. It's the Unapologetic Women Collective Chronic Illness Support. That's the best way to connect with me. Or also through my website, which is thornsandrosescoaching.com.
I love the name of your website, by the way. I wanted to mention that before we left. It describes the experience so well, right? Hopefully more roses than thorns, which takes some time and practice, but yeah, definitely. Well, Shabnam, thank you again. I really appreciate your time today and for helping me guide through ACT because I am a student as well and I'm learning very much about all of this as well. So thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that, if you've been listening, whoever's been listening,
Mm,
take something away from it, even if it's just one little thing today.
right,
You know, sometimes we put so much burden on ourselves to learn so much, but
right.
really it's one step at a time, one piece of wisdom and knowledge at a time. That's all we need.
Yeah, well said. I feel like it's a book, when you were reading a book, a self-help book of some sort, and you pull one thing from it, that one thing that helps to spark some sort of movement forward is all that we need, right? And so thank you again for that spark. I really appreciate it.